Last week on AEW Dynamite, former TNA X Division champion Speedball Mike Bailey made his AEW Dynamite debut, becoming All Elite in the process. This has led to more questioning that who is going to make their AEW Dynamite debut soon and be revealed as being All Elite in the process. Well, today we're going to count down 5 possible names that could be set to make their AEW Dynamite debut very soon. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of stories to get into, and in this countdown video, we're going to be talking about some names that are expected to make their AEW Dynamite debuts imminently and be revealed as All Elite as well. As I mentioned in the intro of this video, Speedball Mike Bailey, last week at the time of recording this video, made his AEW Dynamite debut. It had been reported for quite some time that he had put pen to paper on an AEW contract. There had even been a vignette on a past episode of AEW Collision that the former TNA star was set to be arriving in AEW soon, but he made his official AEW Dynamite debut, competing in a match to advance into the AEW International Championship Eliminator Tournament. And around this time in 2024, there were several big free agents making their AEW Dynamite debuts, whether it be Mercedes Moné or Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay after officially becoming All Elite, amongst others. And this time in 2025, it's expected to be no different. So let's get straight into the names that could be set for an upcoming Dynamite debut. Let's begin with Cedric Alexander. Of course, Alexander was one of the names released by WWE recently, and along with that, many expected that he would be highly in demand on the indie circuit as well for other companies, whether it be TNA Wrestling, whether it be All Elite Wrestling, whether it be New Japan Pro Wrestling, MLW, the NWA, something like that. But the main reason why many people expect Cedric Alexander to make his AEW Dynamite debut soon is really his past partners in WWE, that being at the time the members of the Hurt Business, MVP, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin. Of course, they have debuted over the course of the last several months, staggered over the course of the last several months as the Hurt Syndicate in All Elite Wrestling. It began with MVP at the Grand Slam edition of AEW Dynamite last year. Then came Shelton Benjamin, then came Bobby Lashley, and then came Championship Gold. We are seeing right now that the Hurt Syndicate, consisting of Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, are the AEW World Tag Team Champions. They've successfully defended the championship on a couple of occasions, recently as AEW Revolution against the Outrunners. And actually, on last week's episode of AEW Dynamite, we saw MVP try to recruit MJF as a possible new member for the Hurt Syndicate. But now that Cedric Alexander is officially a free agent, many people assume it's just a matter of time before he joins up with his former tag team partner Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley and MVP and completes the Hurt Syndicate. Of course, they were the Hurt Business together in WWE. Alexander was really the last name to join the Hurt Business in WWE at the time, and one of the reasons why Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin and MVP all decided to leave WWE, of course there were differing reasons, contracts being let to expire, other people not being given new contracts, some people being released. But one of the reasons that there was general unhappiness with Lashley, Benjamin, and MVP reportedly was because WWE had this reluctance, or at least resistance, to put back together the Hurt Business when they thought it was best for business, and powers that be in WWE did not think it was best for business. Of course, the Hurt Business was split up quite suddenly on the build-up to WrestleMania 37 back in 2021, a decision that many people didn't like, as the Hurt Business was one of the most popular factions during a very difficult time in pro wrestling, that being the pandemic era of 2020 into 2021. So, could Alexander be set to become All Elite soon? Could he make his debut on Dynamite? Well, there is something else certainly to consider when it comes to Cedric Alexander, and that is actually relationships that he has with other pro wrestlers. Now, usually this would be something that wouldn't really you consider all that much, but his wife, his spouse, married in 2018, is Big Swole. Now, if that name rings a bell, it should. Big Swole previously competed for AEW in their women's division for a period of time, but then eventually she was let go from AEW. She competed in AEW from 2019 to 2021. And on her departure, it was pretty acrimonious because in November of 2021, Swole announced her departure from AEW, which she later attributed to deficits in structure and diversity. And in response, AEW President Tony Khan stated that he let Swole's contract expire as I felt her wrestling wasn't good enough, whilst giving examples of the diverse structure in management, including himself and the many diverse performers who had been been successful in AEW. Now, we don't know if there's any issues between AEW management and Cedric Alexander as a result of that departure of Big Swole from AEW. Of course, she is his wife, so maybe that would make things complicated or difficult if there was a deal to be reached between Cedric Alexander and AEW. Either way, time will tell if the Hurt Business, the OG Hurt Business, is going to be reunited completely as the Hurt Syndicate in All Elite Wrestling. Now, Indy Hartwell, this is a name that many do expect to come in to All Elite Wrestling. Indy Hartwell, of course, like Cedric Alexander, one of those names that was let go by WWE recently. And Hartwell actually, most recently, at the time of recording this video, had a match against a current AEW champion, that being the TBS champion, Mercedes Moné, for the HOG House of Glory show, in which Indy Hartwell lost. But Moné has been a big advocate of Hartwell, training with her in the past. Now, as I mentioned, Indy Hartwell was released by the company in October of last year. Actually, there was a strange situation in which her last match for the company was a tag team match with Candice LeRae. They lost against Bayley and Naomi on a SmackDown that was taped on the 25th of October and actually aired on the day of her release. It was a strange career for her in WWE because there were periods of time where she was immensely popular, whether it be part of the faction The Way in NXT with Johnny Gargano, Austin Theory, and Candice LeRae. Then eventually kind of breaking away, there was a storyline with Dexter Lumis and the marriage. And eventually, just before she was called up to the main roster, she won the NXT Women's Championship. That's right, she won the NXT Women's Championship and she relinquished the NXT Women's Championship. And it was actually the shortest run in the title's history. Now, she eventually got drafted to Raw, but she never really did all that much on the main roster and got lost in the shuffle. And many people were disappointed with this because she was a performer, certainly, that many people in the WWE fan base were very happy with and felt should get a better go at it, but didn't. Still very young, only 28 years old, and could be a real significant addition to the AEW Women's Division. So, could we see Indy Hartwell come in the future? Possibly feud with Mercedes Moné, team with Mercedes Moné. Of course, she still does need backup after Camille has left Mercedes Moné's side. We don't know if she's going to leave AEW, of course, but Indy Hartwell could certainly be one to watch and could make her AEW Dynamite debut in the near future. Bishop Dyer, the former WWE superstar known as Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin, of course, a very long-tenured WWE superstar, and mainly only got his sort of flowers and maybe respect later on in his WWE career. Now, Baron Corbin had a really interesting WWE career, of course, didn't he? Going through multiple different characters, maybe some that fit better than others. Eventually, he left WWE when his contract expired in November of last year. He was told by WWE that they weren't going to be picking up his contract, but there's a lot that Baron Corbin had done in WWE. Of course, he debuted on the main roster at WrestleMania 32, won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. He was then appointed the Constable of Monday Night Raw. That's after he had won the Money in the Bank contract, unsuccessfully cashing it in on Jinder Mahal in a feud with John Cena that led into SummerSlam. As I mentioned, he was the Constable of Monday Night Raw. He was in a feud with Kurt Angle, which resulted in Corbin defeating Kurt Angle in his retirement match, a bit of an underwhelming one at WrestleMania 35 back in 2019. A few months later, he wins the 2019 King of the Ring tournament. He changed his name to King Corbin until 2021, where he adopted the character of a destitute man. He'd lost everything, which was critically acclaimed at the time. A few months later, he adopted the name Happy Corbin and began portraying this character who had become extremely wealthy from gambling. Then he formed this alliance with Madcap Moss, and then once really Triple H got in charge of WWE Creative, he once again kind of got lost in the shuffle after that. It certainly seemed like Vince McMahon was a big proponent of Baron Corbin in WWE and became a too good of worker for his own good, really, because what actually happened with Baron Corbin is he was always involved in these sort of mid-card feuds, but that was kind of it. He was managed by JBL on WWE television in 2022, but that never really went anywhere, and his career had kind of just sort of stopped in WWE before he went to the NXT roster, formed a tag team with Bron Breakker, which was critically acclaimed. They won the 2024 Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. They won the NXT Tag Team Championships on a couple of occasions, and many people were excited to see what Corbin would do when he went back to the main roster, possibly with Bron Breakker. But Breakker went to the main roster as a single star. Baron Corbin went back, and then nothing really happened. And at the age of 40, he was kind of just left by WWE, who felt like they couldn't get anything else out of him. Since his contract has expired with WWE, he's done a couple of independent pro wrestling shows. Namely, he did Bloodsport for GCW. He's made his debut for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. He unsuccessfully challenged Tom Latimer for the NWA World World Heavyweight Championship. He's also faced off against the likes of Matt Cardona. Now he's going by a new ring name as Bishop Dyer, and he has spoken that, he's kind of reluctant maybe to go to AEW, doesn't want to get lost in the shuffle there considering what happened to him in WWE, but considering his style isn't maybe in keeping with the AEW style, it's maybe more of a WWE style, maybe that might work in AEW. One of the criticisms of AEW maybe is there's too many high spots, too many false finishes, too many kickouts, and Bishop Dyer, Baron Corbin, whatever you want to call him, did get a lot of credit towards the end of his WWE run for being a really solid worker who could work with just about anyone, and maybe that's exactly what AEW needs. So certainly that could be one to watch in the future. Now, this one's a bit fun, and this is a technicality on this one, because what about the Rizzler? Could he be set to make his AEW Dynamite debut? Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, Owen, the Rizzler has already made his AEW debut. That is true. The Rizzler made his AEW debut on the Full Gear 0 Hour pre-show last year. He was the official timekeeper. He rang the bell for Big Boom AJ's match against QT Marshall. Now, reportedly, the Rizzler even got injured ringing the bell. There he is at Full Gear. I don't even know how that's possible. He came out with Paul White, who was on commentary for that bout. And, of course, he's also to be known with the Costco guys. He's also always with Big Boom AJ and Big Justice and that whole faction of social media superstars that occasionally comes into AEW. But because, of course, Big Boom AJ did get injured in the Full Gear 0 Hour pre-show match against QT Marshall, actually earlier on in the day, he broke his foot. We hadn't seen much of the Rizzler since, and the Rizzler is still yet to appear on AEW Dynamite. That's why technically he still does make this list. The Rizzler is still yet to appear on AEW Dynamite. Now, we most recently saw the Rizzler at AEW Revolution at 0 Hour as part of that tag team match that involved the likes of Orange Cassidy, that involved Big Boom AJ and others. And the Rizzler came out as Orange Cassidy, a mini Orange Cassidy, Rizzler Cassidy, if you will. And given the popularity, given the social media traction that he, Big Boom AJ, and Big Justice does get, certainly you would think that AEW would want to utilize him more in the future. In fact, after AEW Revolution, Big Boom AJ did reveal that he, Big Justice, and the Rizzler are all reportedly under contract to AEW, which could suggest that the Rizzler could be set to make an AEW Dynamite appearance in the future. What he would be doing, when we would see it, we'll have to wait and see, but the Rizzler could be set to make his Dynamite debut soon. And finally, Josh Alexander, the former TNA World Champion, former TNA X Division Champion, former TNA Tag Team Champion. He's just about done it all in TNA Wrestling. One of the most consistent and impressive performers for TNA Wrestling over the past several years. The man who really put the company on his back for a long period of time, certainly towards the end of the Impact Wrestling era of the company. And it was reported earlier on this year that his contract expired with TNA Wrestling at the end of February. Initially, it was due to expire actually in February last year, but TNA activated the option year on his contract, which he was happy to do. He did want to explore free agency at the time, but he did another year for TNA Wrestling. And once his contract expired, it was reported that he had hired Barry Bloom to represent him in contract negotiations for whatever contract, whatever company he was going to sign for. Once people had heard that he was going to be represented by Barry Bloom, a lot of people thought, well, that's a good indication he could be set to go to AEW. AEW has a very good relationship with Barry Bloom. A lot of AEW stars are represented by Barry Bloom, whether it be the Young Bucks, Hangman Page, Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, etc., etc. Several names have been represented by him, and it was reported that Alexander was open to any and all offers, and realistically, he was going to go to the place that offered him the most money, that gave him the best deal for his family. And according to reports, it was widespread from the likes of Sean Ross Sapp, Dave Meltzer, Mike Johnson, Wade Keller. They had all reported that Josh Alexander indeed was about to or already had signed with AEW. And the expectation was that the former TNA World Heavyweight Champion was indeed All Elite and was expected to make his debut soon. Now, at the time of recording this video, we've still yet to see Josh Alexander on AEW television. In fact, the most recent time we saw Alexander on any television was actually Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling's show just over the weekend at the time of recording this video. But the expectation is that Alexander is All Elite and he's set to make his Dynamite debut soon. Could that be tonight? Could that be after AEW Dynasty? Of course, AEW does tend to work in these sort of blocks of programming and then like to debut new superstars, wrestlers at pay-per-views or certainly on Dynamite and Collisions after, or in wildcard spots in tournaments like we just saw with another former TNA wrestling star and Speedball Mike Bailey. So certainly Josh Alexander could be involved in maybe a future tournament, maybe the Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament, which is set to begin around this time of the year, building into AEW All in Texas later on. And with Josh Alexander being a proud Canadian, that could certainly be something that maybe we see Josh Alexander get involved with there, because of course they always like to have Canadian representation in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, don't they, as well? So certainly that could be something that they want to do. So given that he's from Bolton, Ontario, Canada, as proud Canadian, of course, he was in the tag team with Ethan Page, the North, in TNA Wrestling, one of the best TNA Wrestling tag teams of all time. Maybe the perfect place for him to debut on Dynamite would be in the Owen Hart Men's Foundation Cup tournament. So we shall see if indeed the walking weapon becomes All Elite. The expectation is that he will, and the expectation is he's going to be on Dynamite very, very soon. So there you go, guys. There's 5 people who could be set for upcoming AEW Dynamite debuts. What do you think of this list? Are there any that I've missed off? Are there any that I shouldn't have included? What's your reaction to them? Which one are you looking forward to seeing the most or the least? And do you think there could be other names that I haven't even thought about that could be set to make a Dynamite debut in the future? Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your reactions in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. A reminder, more watch-alongs coming soon for all of the episodes of Raw and SmackDown in Europe, especially on the road to WrestleMania. We are going to have an AEW Dynasty watch-along and post-show at the beginning of April, as well as a WrestleMania Night 1 and 2 watch-along and post-show for those premium live events too. You can also join the WN365 roster by clicking the join button. You get your exclusive emojis, badges, and members exclusive only content, which more are coming soon. Match rewatches and gaming is coming exclusively for the members of the WN365 roster. Appreciate everyone that's tuned in. More news videos and countdown videos coming soon, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.